Welcome to Bird Camp Radio, where the coveys rise from the high pines, marsh valleys, sagebrush seas, and the shelf rock ledges. Here at camp, the fire's always glowing, the dogs are never far, and the stories of birds, wild places, and the upland life are just beginning. This is Bird Camp Radio. Welcome back, everyone, to Bird Camp Radio. We're excited to be back for our 8th episode. We're very excited for today, and our guest today is Heather Talley with the DWR of Utah. She's a biologist for them, and she sent in a bio for us to read, so we're going to hurry and read that and then bring her on. Heather Talley has dedicated nearly 2 decades to wildlife conservation and management in Utah. Her journey with the Utah Division of Wildlife Resources began in 2006, when she joined the agency as a depredation technician while completing her studies at Southern Utah University. After earning her bachelor's degree in biology and zoology, Heather transitioned into a full-time role with DWR in 2008. Her passion for wildlife and commitment to public service inspired her to continue her education, and she completed a second degree at SUU in 2009. Throughout her career, Heather has played a key role in developing and managing programs that connect Utah's red with the outdoors. State's Walk and Access initiative that public hunting and recreation it with the Wildlife Recreation Program in 2014. Her leadership and dedication have helped expand access, strengthen partnerships with landowners, and enhance outdoor opportunities for sportsmen and women across the state. In 2019, Heather stepped into her current role as the Upland Game Coordinator for the Utah DWR. In this position, she leads statewide management, research, and conservation efforts for Utah's upland game species, drawing from both scientific expertise and a deep personal passion for wildlife. Heather continues to advance sustainable management practices and foster meaningful connections between people and the land. Heather, how are you?
So great. How are you doing?
We are doing good, and we're so excited to have you on the podcast. I think a lot of people have been looking forward to this one.
Well, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yes, of course. So before we jump into the podcast itself, as many listeners know, we have our game, Fire Around the Campfire game, which consists of 10 questions that are timed, and we have a leaderboard of whoever does it the quickest ends up on that leaderboard. So whenever you're ready, we are ready to go.
I'm not sure what to expect.
We'll make it easy on you, hopefully.
Sweet.
All right, here we go. What first inspired you to work with wildlife?
I always loved animals. Even as a little kid, I always wanted to work with animals. So that was an easy. Biology just was a really natural fit for me.
Perfect. Which upland game bird best represents Utah to you?
I think dusky grouse.
Ooh, good choice. If you could study one species for the rest of your career, which would it be?
Again,
What's the biggest challenge in upland game management today?
funding.
What word would you use to describe Utah's upland habitats?
The second biggest challenge in game today. I would say in many upland game species, understudied, and in the upland game species such as sage grouse, fragmented.
Perfect. What's your favorite part of field work?
Hands-on for sure. Getting to color things. I love putting backpacks on turkeys and little backpack radios on different species like that. It's really fun.
Awesome. If you had to pick one season to work in, which would it be?
Summer.
What emotion do you feel when you see a successful conservation project?
It's probably an amalgamate of emotions.
I get that.
The excitement and just a sense of accomplishment and just grateful that that was able to happen for the species. I'm sure I lost your rapid fire round.
Hey, that's good. We live this. We love it. One word to describe hunters who participate in your programs.
Amazing.
If you could sum up your career in one word, what would it be?
Oh. Um, in all of Upland Game career, to sum up in one word,
Yes.
probably management plans. We've done a lot of those that have helped a lot with conservation and other things that we can get into later.
Hey, that's all 10 questions. So, hey, you did great.
I failed your speediness. I'm so sorry.
No, what we need to do is open up a whole nother leaderboard for these types of questions because these are a little bit more difficult than what we usually do. So people are gonna understand that. Don't worry. People are like, man, she got hard.
You can't, Kellen, you can't ask questions about feelings. Come on.
I know I can't be doing that, especially with the amount of experience and expertise you have in this. I probably shouldn't be trying to make it into one word answers for you. No, but you did great. I think everybody's gonna love your answer. So, now segueing into you, Heather. Wow, you have quite the resume when it comes to upland game management and just management in general for here in Utah. And on my part, I just appreciate everything that you do. Um, I absolutely love and enjoy the species that we have here in Utah. And man, I feel like, at least on our part, those species are seriously just thriving here. I mean, we've had great years um, hunting upland, and we've absolutely enjoyed it. So thank you on your part.
Oh no, it's you. You know what they always say about wildlife management is when the weather cooperates, you look like a genius. When it does, everyone's mad at you. But I can tell you've got to be at least pretty enthusiastic about upland game. I can't really tell your profile picture is super small, so I'm not sure what kind of grouse it looks like is maybe hanging off your horse.
Yep,
It's
that's a dusky.
awesome.
Yep.
So I could tell you're really into it. That's amazing. I would
Yes.
love to run on horses and shoot dusky grouse.
Oh yeah. It's honestly one of the greatest things. It's one of our favorite things. As of right now, we are renting right now, so we can't have our own dogs, but we have horses at my in-laws, so they end up taking a lot of the dog work for us with these things. So so that's good. So you have many years of experience in this profession and career. What originally drew you to wildlife biology and the outdoors?
Such a great question. I mean, I think that most of us growing up in the 80s kind of always grew up outdoors and with very little supervision from parents. So I think that we just always loved that anyway. But I just, like I said, I've always loved animals and I always loved biology. And I just knew that I was going to do something with that. And I wasn't sure exactly what, but yeah, just that I always loved that. I always wanted to do something with animals, and like I said earlier, like the hands-on with live animals is definitely my favorite.
Well, you picked the perfect career than that for that then.
True.
Yeah. So with that, I mean, you studied at Southern Utah University. How did your time there shape your passion for the field that you went into?
That's a great question. Um, I think that just there's a lot of one-on-one between the student and the professor attention with SUU. It was a pretty small school back in the you know, 1900s, as they say. No, I'm just kidding. It wasn't thousands, but it was a pretty small school back then. So there was just a lot of great um, opportunities, I think, too, to work with different things with the biology department that I don't know how widespread. I'm guessing those opportunities are still around, but I don't know how widespread that is across different universities. We got to do some fun things like setting up video cameras to monitor bats and do these bat surveys. And then I was one of the people that would go back through afterwards and count how many bats per hour were going through in their caves and things like that. And just a lot of different experiences. I can't think of off the top of my head everything that we did in conjunction with other agencies, but it's always been a passion to just get outside and do things with wildlife.
Yeah, I mean, with your job, it seems like you kinda just I mean, you get all sorts of different opportunities, always doing something different, and, I mean, for me, I work in parks and recreation right now while studying communications, but, um, that's one of the greatest things of the job that I have is I always feel like I'm always doing something different and have a variety of different things in the outdoors, and it's hard to beat that.
It really is. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. That's the best part about these jobs, right? Is you get some of those opportunities that maybe nobody else that doesn't work for an agency like that would ever be able to get because you would need to have all these permissions and CORs and maybe working through universities or other aspects like that. But it's great, like getting to go out and hold wild animals or I did that beaver translocation program for 10 years in the southern region, and that was really cool, and learned how to anesthetize beavers and place tail tags and do all that kind of thing. So just I love all wildlife, but upland game has stole my heart. So
That's awesome. So do you hunt yourself or
I love upland game hunting because I started out almost almost backwards. I think it's the way that a lot of people in Utah started with big game and then didn't realize how incredible upland game was until later. And it's incredible because you can just walk around and kind of be sort of loud and talk with your friends and family and have a good time and then just to opportunistically flush birds. And I love dusky grouse hunting is my favorite. And I don't even use dogs or anything like that. I just walk around and flush them.
I
But
I feel you on that. That's my favorite, honestly, too, right now. It's nice being able to go out there and flush and not being able to have a dog, be able to go out and hunt them, so it's great.
and them being a native grouse, I feel like they are the most underrated like hunting opportunity in Utah because we've got, like you had mentioned earlier, a pretty decent amount of duskies at the moment, more in the higher end of their cycle, and it's a really incredible hunting opportunity. But people a lot of times do get hung up on chukar and pheasant and these non-natives for opportunity, and those are great too. But I hope that people will gain a bigger appreciation for forest grouse in general.
Oh, yeah. I didn't start hunting them till, a few years back. I'd heard of sage grouse and sharp tails, but I honestly had never hunted dusky or ruffed grouse, and I really didn't even know what they were. I mean, then we kinda got into it, and I'm like, "Man, this is a whole new world," so I love it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I actually last year drew out for sharptail, and Dave Dahlgren was nice enough to take me because he does have really great hunting dogs, and it's a lot easier for things like sharp-tailed grouse and sage grouse to hunt with dogs. And so I got my two bird permit then filled out, and then also got my limit on sage grouse this year too with Dave. So I don't know if you've heard a lot of from him, but he does a lot of our just actually finished that forest grass project with USU with his grad student Logan Clark, and it's been great. Like going out with some of these people that do have great bird dogs, like they want to work their dogs. So I encourage beginners to, if they feel like they want to reach out to people or just people that don't have dogs, people love to work their dogs too.
Oh, yeah, I mean, so my wife, Rachel, she's a new hunter, and she just got her hunter safety license and everything this year, so she got to go and do one of your guys' pheasant hunts just a few weeks ago, and man, it was I didn't even know you guys did that, and that was a great experience. I mean, I didn't even get to hunt, I got to be there, and I was having a ball. Like, those
Right.
guys, absolutely amazing dogs, great guys out there helping these new hunters figure it out and learn about what they wanna do. I absolutely love that.
Which do you mind me asking which hunt you guys were on?
Oh, which one was it, Rage? It was the Ogden Bay unit.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's a good. Yep, we usually have one in Annabelle, Pavant, Cedar City, and Ogden Bay. And I think there was one more in the central region this year too. So we do have those listed on our websites for people that want to get into that in case they just look for one specific area and it happens to be closed. But Ogden Bay is great because they do cater very much to the beginners, the first time licensed buyers, and things like that.
No, that's great. That's great information to know for the listeners. Like I said before, I didn't even know that it existed. How long has that been going on now?
Oh, a lot of years. I mean, we've been doing organized beginner or youth hunts as an agency for, I don't even know, over 20 years in some areas. But some of these are newer, like the Cedar City is probably about 10 years ago. We started doing that. I can't remember exactly when Ogden Bay started, but we've gotten a lot of turnout. So we just continue to had more events until we hit capacity, I guess.
No, that's awesome. Man, I'm behind the times, and I thought it was something new or something. I didn't even know.
Oh, you're good. I know it's hard to spread the word about all these things. That's why I love talking to people on these podcasts because it's such a great outreach for us where a lot of people might not know about some of our opportunities and programs that we have going on.
I feel like I'm gonna be the one that learns the most out of this today, so I appreciate it.
I
So
doubt that.
so going back to it, so you graduated from Southern Utah University, and then you started as a depredation technician back in 2006. What did those early years for you in that field teach you personally?
You don't have to say it like it was like so long ago. It makes you feel so old.
Oh, it wasn't that long ago.
I mean, you're right. That was I am 100. No, it was great. Like it's all about people that want to get into these types of careers. And I'm sure that you working for you said that you're with Parks right now.
Yep.
So I think that one of the most important things early on is finding somebody who's open to being a mentor. And my supervisor at the time was such a great mentor. And then when he had moved on and got a different position, then somebody that was kind of his new counterpart, that person had worked for the agency for a long time and he took over trying to mentor me and helping me because I was helping him get some of his field work done and everything. And it's just that it's everything that you can do to find, like, if you find a mentor, it's a game changer. If people are looking into getting into fields like this, because there's not, I'm not sure how to say this accurately, but a lot of your training is just learning as you go and on the field, in the field, on the job training. So that being said, like you can just learn a lot from people that have been in their positions for a long time, and especially if you're working closely with them and other opportunity or other facets of your position. So I think for me, that was the biggest reason that I felt prepared to apply for the full-time job was from all that great mentorship.
No, that's great. I'm a hands-on guy, so I mean that's great. Being able to have a mentorship. I've always grown up on being told like it's all about who you know. Connections are a big key in today's world, and I mean that's great. With that, so after going to school, you ended up going back to school to go get a second degree. What led you to go back to school and pursue that?
I was just so close to finishing that one anyway, so I may as well
Just finish it?
may as well just do it. And just yeah, I think that I learned a lot from that second degree in agriculture because I was working with a lot of landowners in my current role as a depredation specialist. So that knowledge was really helpful to be able to better communicate and kind of build more bridges with the landowners.
No, that's awesome, and that's kinda where I wanted to segue into next is you spent several years managing Utah's walk-in access program, which helps open private lands to public recreation for people like me. That's a big bridge between like the landowners and the hunters and people and the wildlife. And what was that like for you? Because I mean, for me, that's a huge deal, and I feel like especially for a lot of people here in Utah, a lot of us rely on walk-in access and that program, and it's benefited my family for many years, and I've been able to inherit that as well, and get to know a lot of great landowners and their land. So
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it started as kind of that career mobility opportunity where because we didn't have a current walk-in access biologist. So that's true mobility is where you can kind of test drive a job and then apply for it competitively later. So that was a great opportunity. And because I already knew so many landowners working with depredation, I felt like that was really helpful too. And the reason that that came about, it's been in the northern region for much longer, but it went statewide during those years. And that was, I think that kind of what fermented that was the Conitzer versus Johnson street, whether a stream was considered, the stream bed is considered private or public land. I know that that's gone back and forth through different legislation. And when I think that in this moment, the stream bed had become private, that was constituted as a private landowner that owned the surrounding property. And so people used to be able to kind of just um, go through their canoes or walk across, walk into rivers and things like that for fishing opportunity. And they weren't able to do that anymore. So that's why that was the push for it to go kind of statewide.
no, that makes sense. And I have a personal question with this is how what is like the I don't know exactly how to say it, but like the management, not the management, but the way that you set up a walk-in access program, like I mean, you do a lot with the landowners. I mean, how do you work that, managing that program with the relationships with them?
Sure. So I think that it's important when you're first speaking with landowners about walk-in access to highlight what they're gaining, you know, their benefit other than a monetary compensation. This program has changed with pay scales and other things like a ton throughout the years. So I can't speak to the most relevant up to date information. But as far as it goes with speaking with landowners to try to entice them to enroll in the program, it's been beneficial to mention they do get increased law enforcement patrol on walk-in access properties, and they can I'm not sure where they are with this portion now, but back then they could sign up for hunting of certain species or fishing or both. And I think now it might be more that they could if they sign up for hunting, they have to be open for like different classifications, like all upland game or all big game, things like that. So I'd have to look into the nuances of the new walk-in access version. But it's yeah, just talking to them about what's on their property, what they could be open for. If there's certain we used to be able to close during certain seasons, like if they had cattle on their property or at certain times a year, and just working with them at that. And I know that a lot of landowners have been pleased with walk-in access because even if they posted their property, a lot of times people would trespass and knowing that it's governed by the division and that we do have more law enforcement patrol and that we do have like more of a system because you do have to get a it's free but you do have to get an authorization number to enter walk-in access properties and having a little bit more control that way a lot of people didn't have issues anymore with like vandalism or littering and things that they had in the past before enrolling in the program.
No, that's awesome. I thank you for answering that because that's always been a big question for me. I just didn't I guess I understand, but didn't really understand, like, the ins and outs of it, and I just kinda wanted to get to know that a little bit. So do you measure the success of the program by I mean, I just had to renew mine, my permit, so do you just measure the success by those being given out, or how does that work?
So we used to have registration boxes, as you pointed out, because it was a long time ago because I'm so old. Just kidding. I'm kidding. No, we used to have registration boxes, and that was, kind of how we would gauge how many people use different properties, and that was kind of a measure of success. But sometimes people would forget, or it's hard to upkeep them because they get full of wasps, and it just became kind of a nightmare. So I'm not sure how if there's a harvest survey or any kind of there might be a random survey sent out to authorization holders to ask when how many walk and access properties they visited and which ones they were and things like that. And then some of our harvest reports too. Like I used a walk and access property on my sharp-tail hunt. And then the survey people that we have hired to do our harvest surveys called me and asked where I hunted, and I told them, and then they said that it wasn't good enough information, that they needed a drainage or something. And I was like, well, I'm the program coordinator, so I think I will understand what this walk and access property is.
Yeah.
Enough information. But no, it's so like I find them just so valuable in that regard. That just opens up a whole bunch of opportunity, especially for those upland game species more tied to ag and things like sharp-tail and huns.
No, that's awesome. Well, thank you for answering those questions. I've been wanting to ask somebody about that, so I bet a lot of people will enjoy that.
Sure.
Now, I know that we've been spending a lot of time in the past, but now fast forwarding to today, you've been Utah's Upland Game Coordinator since 2019. I mean, that's a huge responsibility overseeing so many species and habitats across the state. What does a typical day look like for an upland game coordinator like yourself?
A typical or the most fun day?
I mean, you can answer both of those questions.
So right. So we do like generally the higher up within the agency, and I think you'll relate to this, the more administrative work there is. And so it's a lot of times the district biologists or the habitat biologists, different people like that are actually getting out and going on the ground and doing that field work. But I do get opportunities and every week is totally different. So I do have a lot of like I mentioned earlier, we writing management plans. So we've completed the upland game management plan, revised the current turkey management plan, and created an upland game guzzler management plan in the last few years. And all of those things are like really integral and important. It sounds so boring, but the reason that plans are so important to the agency is because we apply for funding through different mechanisms, and that each mechanism kind of ranks things higher when objectives of that project are tied to management plans. And so not having an upland game management plan, we had finished, I believe, in 2022, and not having that previously, we'd have to look for other management plans or habitat work or other things in other places to kind of tie to objectives. And now we get to tie things directly to these specific plans for upland game. And it helps us to garner funding. But for the fun days, obviously I love like working hands-on. So that's the most fun things that we get to do. We do a ptarmigan trip. We just started this last year and this year in the high Uintas, where we go out and try to do some callback surveys for ptarmigan. And that's been super fun and incredible. It's just backpacking up with horses and camping for a few days and trying to get as many callback surveys done as we can. We try to color a ptarmigan if we can. We call it arding, but you know what I mean. It's just those those little backpacks. We have some 8-gram backpacks from GeoTrack that we got for ptarmigan before they stopped producing, and just anything like that. Doing the holding a dusky grouse, or sorry, it was a ruffed grouse in this awesome banding project that Dave Dahlgren does was so cool and fun, and like one of the coolest things that I've ever gotten to do. while we were banding it. And then also Nikki Fry with USCO has helped design this turkey study, which I can go into later. It's really awesome. But that's something where Texas Parks and Wildlife is so amazing to send us some of their Rio turkeys. And we're putting them in this release site in Utah and then putting backpacks on both resident and Texas birds, comparing habitat selection and all the, survival, telemetry, nesting, all those different things. And so all of that would be my most fun days in the field. And I get to leave tomorrow morning to go pick up some ARUs we have out for scaled quail down in like the Blanding area.
Wow. Ha, I think you honestly have the coolest job out there. I need to rethink my profession. That is awesome. Personally, I have a buddy, and we've been talking about doing one of those ptarmigan hunts up in the high Uintas. That has been one of my bucket list ideas for quite some time, and wow, I'm a little jealous of that.
And the only reason I was successful harvesting a ptarmigan is because Jason Robinson, who had this program before me, he had this job before I did. And now he's a district biologist and loves doing that. But he has really great bird dogs and trains bird dogs and everything. So that's the only reason I was successful was his great bird dogs.
Hey, I mean, you got the ends, you might as well take them.
Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome. Um, what are some of the biggest changes you've seen in Utah's upland game management over the past decade? Anything crazy or anything changed quite a bit?
I think that a lot of changes, and I don't know for sure the timing of everything before I started, but I definitely think that a lot of changes have occurred with season dates. I know that it's been quite a while since we pushed back sage grouse season dates because we were seeing that too many broods were being harvested and we weren't giving enough time for brood breakup to fully occur before the hunt started. And as you know, the brood hen is like the most important of all um, of all upland game birds, and we always are most excited about the brood hen because not every hen is going to be a bird is going to raise successful broods, and that's because upland game is so heavily reliant on production and recruitment for survival, and there's such short-lived well, I mean, there's different I guess there's different things with that. Grouse are a little bit longer lived and a little bit less compensatory in nature and mortality than quail, chucker, pheasant are shorter lived and more compensatory mortality wise. We can talk about that later, but it's just they're still very dependent, on this year's production. And so with that being the case, we want to make sure that we're allowing brood breakup to occur, and that's why we have a lot of season dates that are set the way that they are currently. We did actually push back the ptarmigan season a week since I was here. So now it does start September 1st with a bunch of other upland game species. But it's been just interesting to see how things have changed. I right now with turkeys, we're moving in that direction with all this transmitter data. We're hoping to decipher if we can find all the successful hens and figure out their peak hatch, we can back calculate to peak nesting and then again to peak breeding. And we'll be able to tell if our current hunt structure season dates are in the correct window because we want 60 to 70% of breeding to occur before we start our limited entry hunt. And if that's not happening, maybe we need to move our season date back a little bit, or maybe they're breeding earlier than we know. And so getting that nesting data is going to be really imperative to whether or not we change our hunting strategy for turkeys. So I think a lot of it remains to be seen, but we've definitely gotten some great data through the Chucker project with BYU. Randy Larson had a grad student, Jake Barnes, who worked on a lot of that spatial ecology of chuckers. And a lot of that information went into our upland game guzzler plan because it was like water use and different spatial use that way. And then of course with Dave's student Logan, he did a lot of great work on dusky and ruffed grouse. And so all of that information we're just still building upon. But as you know, upland game isn't the highest priority for a lot of projects sometimes. And so it's the studying of upland game is pretty minimal in the West compared to other species or compared to upland game studies in the East.
Wow, that's really fascinating. I didn't realize how much actually went into it. I mean, I knew that there was a lot, but I didn't necessarily know exactly what it took and all the changes that are being made in order to allow us to be able to enjoy these birds. That's amazing. Going into that, I mean, we wanted to talk a lot about the ruffed and dusky grouse here in Utah. It's your favorite bird, my favorite bird, the dusky grouse, and I've just really enjoyed these birds, and those are kind of the things that we'd like to kind of focus on, if that's good with you. How would you describe the current population trends for ruffed and dusky grouse here in Utah right now?
That's such a good question because the past couple of years when we've had like pretty severe winters, but then we've also had moisture through the hot, dry parts of the year and having those good spring and summer. We're always looking for that great insect abundance to feed those broods because chicks are growing so fast and they need so much of that. Last year, I would say, or rather this past spring this year, because we never really got a ton of winter moisture, and then we didn't get a ton this spring or summer either. So we did see smaller broods, less broods. Like I said earlier, because they are like longer lived birds compared to pheasants or quail or something, people are still seeing a decent number of grouse because we've had some carryover from winter, but as adults. But we just, it's hard because right now, the best that we have to estimate a population is based on our hunter harvest surveys. And because they don't engage in lekking behavior like sharp tail or sage grouse, they aren't very easy to survey. And it's really hard for us to come up with other surveys, which is why we're doing this awesome ARUs, different kinds of studies with autonomous recording units, because then we could just place those out and count different calls from different birds at certain distances and be able to count how many birds were in that area. So we're getting there eventually. We're working on towards being able to do like a population estimate, but we're not there yet.
No, that makes sense. I know for us, last year, hunting both ruffed and dusky, and like I said, this is probably different for a lot of people. Last year, we had a heyday on both species. This year, I've definitely seen and heard from many people. It's been good, but definitely not what we saw last year for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Hoping for more precip this winter for sure.
No, that's good. So, with the population and finding their trends, how can us as the public help you guys out with that again?
So we do, if you'll complete harvest surveys, if we send them to you. So randoms, people are sampled to complete harvest surveys. And if you complete those, they're not mandatory. So it is really great if the public would just take a few minutes. It doesn't take too long. You can do it online or they've done some phone calls to correct for non-response bias in the past, and you can just answer some of those questions and tell us how many grouse you harvested, and that at least gives us an idea of success. Generally speaking, a harvest accounts for 10% of the population, but that's like a loosely based um, number since we don't have better survey data.
No, that's great. That's good to know for us and how we can always help in whatever way we can. Um, so I know a lot of people already know the habitats for upcoming hunters. I know we have quite a bit of new hunters who listen to the podcast. What types of habitats do these types of birds depend on most throughout the year?
So that's such a great question because we actually have an article. And if you want, I can share the link with you so you can drop in your show notes.
Yes.
But we have something on our website that Dave Dahlgren, in conjunction with Chuck Carpenter and some others, put together for how to best to find dusky and ruffed grouse in the fall during hunting season. And so some of those things to keep in mind is, always more towards the beginning of the season, you can kind of walk along the conifer edge, like a and sagebrush edge with conifer type of thing, and find a lot of dusky grouse. And then ruffed grouse are always in that thick, nasty, like maple and conifer aspen mix type stands. But in the winter time, ruffed grouse are going to be reliant on aspen, and they eat the buds off male aspen trees to subsist through the winter. So you're going to want to check more in the aspen for the winter time. And then with dusky grouse, they are so cool. And I know that you know this, but it's just so fun to talk about that they have a reverse migration and subsist totally on conifer needles, which is such a neat adaptation. So all winter, the later in the winter it gets, the higher up in elevation you'll need to go to try to find them in conifers.
I've noticed that. We are definitely working harder now and going up higher. We're putting in the miles now.
Well, that's why you've got your horses.
That's right. That's right, or we wouldn't do it probably.
There's something that I gleaned from this latest thesis publication that was done from Logan Clark on the dusky grouse stuff. Wing et al. In 1944 documented observations of ruffed grouse chicks existing in a dusky grouse brood. And I had no idea that forest grouse would brood mix like that. So it hasn't been widely studied. We don't know a lot about it, but how awesome would that be to see how often that is that chicks of different species just kind of brood mix together.
That is fascinating, yeah, that would be pretty cool to see. So going off of that real quick, do you guys have any, like, research or habitat projects focused specifically on grouse right now?
So at the moment, we don't have any research projects funded right this second, but something that we are doing, I mean, other than the ARU stuff that I'm hoping to do with forest grouse on Monroe Mountain, Dave Dahlgren's also putting out ARUs for other upland game species. And it's just, yeah, we don't have anything on forest grouse at the moment that's an actual project, but we're trying to get those funded. We're hoping to get more in that direction. It's just a very understudied, especially dusky grouse are so understudied and they're so awesome. So it's unfortunate. But if we can get more funding, it's really hard right now because Pittman Robertson tax is down pretty far compared to a few years ago. And that's how we get so much of our money, that excise tax on guns and ammunition. And so people just hasn't been buying as much. And that has just kind of created a little bit of a deficit that way.
Oh, yeah, I didn't know that. Man. See, that's fascinating to get to learn, like, where the funding comes from, and well, that's kinda cool to see that, and I wish that we could get those funds for you guys, but dang, maybe one day, right?
Right. Well, and people can always, we have great non-government organizations. And I didn't know if you wanted to get into that later, but of course, we love acronyms at the division. You know this. So we always call them NGOs for non-government organizations, but they help a ton with a lot of our projects. And that's been so great. Like NWTF, National Wild Turkey Federation, they bought thousands, like tens of thousands of dollars worth of turkey transmitters for that Texas project I was talking about. They help us with a lot of habitat projects too for turkeys. Chucker Foundation did pitch in for, I believe, both the Dusky Grouse study and a Chucker study that we were doing with BYU. And we also have Pheasants Forever that pitches in for like a full-time person that's a cost share position to do a lot of habitat work up at Ogden Bay. And also they help with like our quail translocation every winter and helping trap turkeys in the winter as well. And so and also Sportsmen for Fish and Wildlife. I'm sure most people have heard of them, and they also pitch in a ton for that cost share position, for other research opportunities. And so it's just without our upland game NGOs like those guys, it would just be so hard not to get it was so hard to get things funded. And all of this, when they help us fund things, it's routed through the WRI or Watershed Restoration Initiative database. And that way we can document, which NGOs are helping pay for which things. Because if generally when we put a project together, we account for 75% of that comes from those Pittman Robertson tax funds, but we need 25% match. And so all these NGOs helping to pay that match just makes the project like the project wouldn't happen otherwise. So that's been super helpful for sure.
Yeah, that makes sense. Being able to have those organizations help the funding. I mean, we here in the next few months, we're gonna have Dave Wanacott from the Wild Chucker Foundation come on to the podcast. We kind of got to meet him. We actually met him over at the bay.
Yeah.
And we hunted. My wife got to hunt behind his dogs, and wow, they got quite the foundation. And getting to know them and learn more about their organizations and stuff like that. Really great organizations out there to become a part of and to help move forward the cause.
Definitely. It's like their contributions are monumental to our success for sure.
I've always wondered how that all worked and how it all intermingled, but that's great information to know and to be a part of. I just have a few more questions about the grouse. How does both the dusky and the ruffed grouse fit into the larger picture of upland game management within our state of Utah?
I mean, because we just had this research project with dusky grouse, and then some ruffed grouse findings were also part of that. So I think that we're in a space right now that we're really trying to increase our knowledge of those species, especially in Utah, because such we have such little data and information on them. And just as far as why they're important. They are a natural resource and they can provide those great benefits economically, recreationally, ecologically. For example, a lot of our the animals in my program are either a keystone species like lagomorphs are a keystone species to a lot of fur bearers and raptors. And then we have an indicator species like sage grouse. And so I think that that warrants a lot of value right there. And then we have hunting, bird watching, photography, like those different available opportunities that people can enjoy with dusky and ruffed grouse. And like we talked about at the beginning, I love them. They're native to Utah, and I think that in my mind, makes them definitely ranks high on the importance of trying to get more baseline data on them and their value to the ecosystem. We may not know exactly what's going on from that lack of data, but we always strive for healthy populations. And because they haven't been studied that much, that's difficult, but we're always trying and striving to get more information. And then, like I said, with the turkeys study, where we want to do active management and hopefully change our season dates or bag limits or whatever it is to make sure that we have the healthiest populations. And keeping healthy populations isn't just great for the ecosystem balance, but also it's great for the species themselves since they if animals are huntable, they qualify for that PR tax that we've talked about. And that's a huge source of funding for them. And when you talked about specific different habitat projects, there's nothing like major in the works that we know of right this second because our WRI deadline isn't until January. So we'll probably see all those projects come through right in January is what generally happens because biologists busy in the field, so
Hey, that's right.
chasing stuff. But it's great with forest grouse because so much of what we do for big game benefits forest grouse anyway. And so that's great. Like aspen regeneration is definitely going to benefit ruffed grouse, especially. And then a lot of great fawning habitat is a huge benefit to dusky grouse. And so things like that are definitely occurring, but we're definitely working with those management plans. We're trying to force a few more. Force sounds like the wrong word, but we're trying to advocate for a few more, um, upland game centric projects.
That's what we like to hear. It's kind of cool to see just kind of how it all intermingles with each other with different species and how it all comes together in one at the end of the day. That's really cool. Um,
Sure.
I appreciate that answer. After so many years of working across programs, leading initiatives, and studying wildlife, you've clearly found a lifelong calling in the work that you do, and we appreciate that and everything that you do. What's a memory from your field career that you would like to share with everybody? Something that stands out to you?
Well, one thing that I didn't, two things that I didn't mention before, capturing sandhill cranes. They have their transmitters look a bit differently and they actually go on their leg. And that's been really cool too. Because even though we have these migratory upland game species, they were in the Upland Game Guidebook, and now they're still part of the migratory guidebook. But I work really closely with the migratory game bird coordinator as well, so we can get a lot of great data. And that's one of the things that we've done a lot of in the last few years is capturing sandhill cranes and putting transmitters on them. And that's been super fun. And also just, I mean, I kind of alluded this earlier, but working with our partners and building those lasting relationships has been pretty cool. It's been awesome to see the work that can be done with great collaborators.
That's kind of cool because I mean earlier you sent in a picture of you with the sandhill crane. Is that what you were doing in that picture? Or
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure. I don't remember which pictures I sent, but yeah.
okay, that makes sense. So one of the things that you just mentioned is being able to collaborate and work with great people. My next question for you is, what do you hope for Utah's next generation of biologists and hunters? What can they learn from your work that you've done?
I think that just understanding the importance of studying species like this is just so integral to the success of a healthy management. Even like we've seen with sage grouse, for example, like working collaboratively and proactively and developing all these programs like the sage grouse initiative and mitigation and all these different tools to help sage grouse, even though they still, are they're still in the state that they're in, we do still have 4 healthy huntable populations, and they're not listed. They've been petitioned for listing a number of times, but they've never been listed as an endangered species, and I think that that's a huge win, and that wasn't my doing, but but I think that that's a huge win, and that's just a great thing that I've kept going with our collaborations with great partners and with different programs. But just understanding that any wildlife species out there has the potential to one day become, sage grouse, right?
Right.
So it's so important to get that baseline data and try to do as much active management as possible.
I love to hear it. We spent a lot of time talking about the past and now in the present, but what are you looking forward to with your career? What's the next thing for you in your upland game management career?
I want to take time really quick to mention that almost none of these questions were on the Google Doc. It seems so unfair. I don't know.
Hey, you've done an absolutely amazing job.
I just feel like I'm not trying to really reiterate the same thing over and over, but really it is continually getting those research projects, continually getting I should be starting, another degree here soon, and hopefully I'll be getting a really great research project. I've already worked with some people towards that. And just getting all that data, I mean, that's a personal journey, but like for everybody that involved, I feel like for the Upland Game program as a whole, just getting more information so that we can just really understand what if we should change any of those season lengths or bag limits or possession limits, anything like that. And just trying to be as proactive with our habitat management and everything. We have such great people that work for us. They already do such a good job, but it's just hard because if you don't know exactly what the species needs, it's harder to do a really great project for them. I mean, we know on the broad scale, but fine scale of Utah is just such a different thing. So, or right now with the Chucker project, that we still have the small portion of it still going, and they're doing more of a habitat selection rather than water use from the previous study. And because it would be great to know exactly what metrics different species used in different areas for prime nesting or breeding habitats or whatever it might be. So I think that on a large scale, we know a lot, but on a really fine scale, we're still looking into some of those things, and especially Utah specific things. And that's what's really exciting about the turkey stuff too, is because if we can get Utah specific data, it's kind of a game changer because turkeys in Utah behave. We have mostly Rio Grandes here and a few Merriams and a bunch of Marios and a bunch of other possible hybrids. We're not sure. I actually just sent in turkey feathers for some genetic testing, so we'll get more answers on that soon. But Rios behave more like Merriams in Utah, and so maybe they do have a little bit different patterns than we expect. But just getting some of the answers to that, I think, is my biggest goal.
Wow, that's a lot of cool stuff. No, those are some great goals, and I mean, hearing that as an uplander is exciting to be able to see the work that you're doing and the wildlife department is doing here in Utah. A lot of great things, and Heather, it's been great having you here on the podcast with us. Your work and not only helps protect Utah's upland species, but also connects people to the outdoors in so many meaningful ways, and I appreciate that, and I believe our listeners will too.
And I appreciate your story, Rachel, of you going out on your first hunt on pheasants. Like that's exactly what those hunts and exactly what our pheasant stalking program is made for, is for that R3 component of recruitment, retention, reactivation for people to get hooked on hunting. And I'm so glad that you guys experienced that. That's so awesome.
Yeah, it was a great experience. I know that she absolutely loved it, and I mean, I think I enjoyed it a little bit more. That was an absolutely amazing experience, and everybody that was there, I you could definitely tell everybody was having a great time across the board, so love
That's
to
so
see it. So, Heather, before we close, a question that we ask every guest on before we part ways is, what kind of advice would you give to upcoming hunters or hunters that have been hunting for years? Do you have any advice that you would give?
as far as advice for supporting conservation or advice for hunting practices or
However you want to answer that question.
okay, I would say I'm going to take it in this direction this time.
Go
So
ahead.
if people aren't aware, we do have an upland game slam. There's also like a waterfowl slam, a cutthroat trout slam. There's even a new birding slam for just photography, which I think is really cool. So if people aren't into hunting, they can still you pay $20 to enroll in the slam or 10 if you're a youth. And every time you complete a slam, you get something. So for Upland Game, you get like a collectible coin. For waterfowl, you get a band. And it's a really fun way to add an extra challenge and kind of maybe help hunters focus on species they might not normally focus on. And all of that money goes back into conservation for the species the slam was for. So we can use those SLAM dollars, if we don't have quite enough money for match for some of our great habitat projects, we could do that with some SLAM money. But even if you don't hunt, purchasing a hunting or combination license supports wildlife projects or even buying a duck stamp. So you can still, all that money still comes back into habitat and conservation, even if you're not a hunter. But like I said, now they have that really cool birding slam too. So if you're not a hunter and you want to enroll in that for just photographing birds, you can. But there, that revenue generated is just held in an account and then used when we need it. So I think that's maybe something, maybe not a lot of people know about the slams, but it's a really cool program.
I completely agree, and I can second that. I actually finished my Upland Game Slam this year, and then I'm still working on my Ultimate Game Upland Game Slam. Still working on that one, but I mean,
Which
it's been great.
that is so cool because we've only had like 10 people complete the ultimate.
Are you serious?
Yeah. So you should do it. That would be so fun.
I know, I have an uncle that did it, so I'm like, "Man, I gotta do it."
That's awesome.
Yeah,
But
so
yeah, I mean,
it's
I guess I guess I did think of one other thing that if anybody for everyone to be really discerning in the field so that a lot of times if they see what they think is a covey and the largest bird they think is a male, so they target it, make sure that really is a covey and not a brood. So you're because then the brood hen dies if you're targeting the largest out of a brood. So that's one thing to just keep in mind for all upland game hunters is try to avoid harvesting a brood hen.
that is good information to know. I'll make sure to do that now. I don't think I've done anything too bad. Well, Heather, thank you so much for joining the Bird Camp Radio podcast, and we asked some serious, crazy questions, so everybody please give her applause of her, answering, because this is some great information that we've received today, and I think everybody's gonna absolutely love and enjoy this, so thank you.
I forgot one more thing. You can choose to add it or not, Helen. It's up to you.
Yes, add it in.
But if for new hunters that are looking for mentors, a few years ago, for a special project, I pushed all these seasoned hunters I know, including Brett Winnicott, like you mentioned earlier, to become a mentor on learnhunting.org. So it's not a divisional wildlife site, it's actually just ran by Hunter Education. So we don't have anything to do with it, but you can register as somebody that wants to find someone to take them hunting, or you can register as a mentor. And that way people can find people to take them hunting. So it's pretty cool.
Oh, that's really cool. I didn't know about that. That's a new one for me too. I've learned all sorts of different things today.
I'll send you that link too with Dave's upland or his forest grass.
Yes, yes, please, and then we'll put it with the podcast, and that will be great, so everybody can access that information, and if they want to be a part of it, they can know where to find it.
I think that's fantastic.
Thank you again, everyone, for listening to the Bird Camp Radio podcast. We hope that you guys enjoyed this episode as much as we did, and we appreciate the work that Heather is doing here in Utah for our upland game habitat. Heather, your time for the rapid fire around the campfire game was 2 minutes and 23 seconds. But everyone, we got to give her a break because she did get some very, very difficult questions and she did an absolutely amazing job at answering those. We're going to look into creating a new leaderboard for guests like her and what she does, because those are some very difficult questions and we appreciate your answers. So our leaderboard still stands with Tanner Cruson in first, Jimmy Humes in second, and Eli Howard in third. Thank you again, everybody, for listening to Bird Camp Radio podcast. Once again, please find us on our social media platforms. We're on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. You can find every single one of those at Bird Camp Radio. As well, you can follow my personal pages at Kellen Golightly. And as well, we do have the Bird Camp Radio store open. You can find the link to the store on any of those pages that we've mentioned. So go ahead, check it out. Go ahead and support it. Thank you again for listening. You've been listening to Bird Camp Radio, where the high pines, marsh valleys, sagebrush seas, and shelf rock ledges always call us back. Until next time, keep your dogs close, your shot true, and your campfire stories ready to share. We'll see you back at camp. Don't miss out on the next episode, where we'll host our next guest on the podcast. You don't want to miss this one. Thank you.